Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're talking about the Games Workshop Death Spiral. What it is, what's causing it, and what they need to do to correct it. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Well, if you're here now, you already know what Games Workshop is, and the real question is, what is the Games Workshop Death Spiral? What's causing it, and what do they have to do to fix it? So if you know who Games Workshop is, you definitely know what Warhammer 40,000 is. And with the recent launch of Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, only a couple months ago, and the brand new launch box Leviathan set, the newest chapter in Games Workshop's most popular tabletop war game has begun. And the initial launch was supposed to have a 2-week pre-order period and was sold out on the first day. And while initially this was worrisome to some people, a couple months later, we know that even though Games Workshop doesn't have the Leviathan box for sale anymore, there's still plenty of them floating around in the community. Enough that the prices have stayed strong. You can easily get a hold of one if you want, but they didn't flood the market the same way that we saw with the Age of Sigmar Dominion set. And you may remember that I was praising them for a flawless launch, but that was of the box set. So now let's talk a little bit about 10th edition. So 10th edition is a new rule set, and overall, I really like it. I think it's more approachable to new players. Games Workshop has adopted the slogan, simplified, not simple, and I think for the most part that's true. Now, like any new edition of a game, especially one as complex as this, there are some initial hiccups, balance issues, and overall things that they had to solve. And with a series of nerfs and changes to the rules, for the most part, they're at least addressing the things that we're having issues with. And to your casual players, the game is in a good place. Now, if you start looking at the competitive scene, it becomes very quickly evident that that is not the case. But the truth is, the competitive scene really doesn't represent the majority of people that are in the hobby, either collecting, painting, playing, or doing a combination of those things. So I think it's a little less important and doesn't overall correctly represent the game state. So if the launch box was a great success and Games Workshop's biggest sales ever, if the edition has some flaws but it's overall pretty good, what is the actual death spiral? The death spiral is essentially an imbalance between Games Workshop's three main parts of its business model. The first of those three parts is design. Games Workshop's main business is to design, manufacture, and sell miniatures. So that takes us to the second part of Games Workshop's business model, manufacture. Games Workshop not only designs their own miniatures, but they also manufacture them as well. Which brings us to the third and final step of Games Workshop's business model, is to sell those miniatures. So pretty basic. They design their own miniatures, they then manufacture them, and then use a couple of different ways to sell them, including their own website, their own Games Workshop stores, and then of course the friendly local game stores that many people are familiar with as well. So like any business, when we take these three things into mind, design, manufacture, and sell, each relies on the steps before it in order to be successful. So if we design a bunch of miniatures, we manufacture those miniatures, and then we sell those miniatures, Games Workshop wins, everything is going well, and we as consumers who enjoy the game, enjoy the models, etc., we all win as well. But when one of those things is out of balance, it can cause issues to the overall business model. So we know that with the launch of 10th edition, Games Workshop has launched a bunch of new miniatures. First off will be the Tyranids, after that the Space Marines. We've already seen the new Tyranid models, and they've just come out with the first of the codexes for this new edition. We've also seen the Space Marines new miniatures to come shown off as well, and we know that they're going to be the next codex. And on top of Warhammer 40,000, Games Workshop has been pumping out a record amount of designs for other games like Age of Sigmar, the skirmish games like Kill Team and Warcry, other big box games like Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game and Warhammer the Horus Heresy, and then of course they have independent box games as well, like Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress, Warhammer Quest Cursed City, and now we even see that they are bringing back Epic Scale, but this time it's going to be Warhammer the Horus Heresy. So as far as design goes, we know Games Workshop is having no issues coming up with new games, new products, and absolutely crushing it. So we're going to skip over manufacture for a second, and then we're going to take a look at sell. So obviously Games Workshop designs all its own stuff. They have their own factories in Nottingham where they manufacture these items. And then of course we talked about the different ways that they sell them. Either straight to consumers on the website where we are now, through those Games Workshop branded stores, or alternatively friendly local game stores like comic shops, card shops, etc. So as far as the sell portion of the business model, let's take a look at that real quick. So we know Tyranids have gotten a bunch of new models lately. We know they were in the Leviathan launch starter box for 10th edition, and they've also gotten the first codex as well. So without a doubt, they're going to draw a ton of popularity. But of course, Space Marines will always be the most popular of the factions in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So just to get an accurate measure as to how Games Workshop is doing sell-wise, well, we know Leviathan sold out the first day that it was available. So even if there's still plenty of product floating around on the third-party market, which there is, Games Workshop has already made its money on Leviathan, and it was a great success. So now let's take a look at the Tyranid range. So many of these items in the Tyranid range have been in the range for years, and then many of them are brand new. Right now we're taking a look at the Games Workshop USA site. So we do see the Parasite of Mortrex and the brand new Barb Gaunts are still in stock. We also have the 3 new starter sets, the introductory set, the starter set itself, and then the ultimate starter set. But then after that, we see the Carnifex Brood is sold out. We scroll on down here and we see Horuspex, Harpy, Trigon, Tyrannofex. Some of these are actually the same kits. We see the new datasheet cards. It's also important to note that all of these models are from the existing range, not the brand new stuff that just came out. These are, however, the new datasheet cards. So we see that quite a bit of stuff is selling out here. Then we get down to some of the new models, the Neurolictor, the Termagants, old model Broodlord, Gargoyle Brood, the new Lictor, the new Hormagaunts. Again, all completely sold out. And as we keep scrolling down here, we see that it is the same for the entire range. Pyrovore and Pyrovore are the same kit. The new Gene Stealers, Raveners, Tyranid Prime / Warriors, all sold out. And then again, Hive Tyrant and Swarmlord, same kit. The new Tyranid Codex is completely gone, sold out. We have the Tervagon, the Hive Tyrant, and then the brand new Death Leaper. Again, all sold out. And as we continue to scroll down the list here, we see that literally every single Tyranid model available from Games Workshop, old, new, even the Combat Patrol that came out last week, the Codex, and everything else is completely sold out. So how possibly could this be a death spiral if literally everything that they have for sale has been sold? There's nothing left for anybody that wants to come in and buy these things. And why is that a problem? Well, for a lot of people that are new to the hobby, they haven't had a chance to stock up on extra kits or build up a pile of shame over the years. So everything they want to get, they have to buy either directly from Games Workshop or through one of the stores that we talked about, or potentially something like eBay or Amazon. Well, when everything is sold out, it makes it nearly impossible for people to get a hold of these items, because it's not just Games Workshop's web store that's sold out. It's basically the majority of the internet, which is a fairly accurate representation of planet Earth. So while the Space Marines are struggling with a swarm of Tyranids that could potentially wipe out humankind in the 41st millennia, that's definitely not the problem, at least not now in the USA, because there's no Tyranids. You can't get any of them. So that brings us back up here to our design, manufacture, and sell. So we know Games Workshop is doing a fantastic job selling things because they don't have anything left for sale. We also know from Games Workshop, because they're a publicly traded company and their semi-annual reports that they put out, that they're doing record sales, record volumes, and making record margins. We know that about 50% of their total sales worldwide are in North America / United States. And we know that their highest profit margins are in North America / United States. So they have all the incentives in the world to make as much product as possible, as long as it's selling, ship it straight to the United States, and sell it for the maximum margin possible. And that's exactly what they've been doing. Unfortunately, they have sold everything. So how is it possibly a death spiral if they're making more stuff than ever, they're manufacturing more stuff than ever, which we'll get to, and then they're selling more stuff than ever? Well, it's a death spiral because this is a slow problem that's been happening over the last, basically 2 years. Games Workshop manufactures the majority of its own products in Nottingham. They have multiple factories over there. They've just picked up more plastic mold injecting equipment. They've been running at 100% capacity for over a year, close to 2 now. And there have been issues basically over the last 2 years with a lot of products being sold out, staying sold out, and people just having issues getting a hold of them. And it's not just brand new stuff that's coming out. It's not just old stuff that's been in the catalog for decades. It's everything. So we know that the main issue Games Workshop is having is manufacturing. And that is basically the bottleneck that is causing all of the issues that's going to potentially lead to the death spiral. And all the death spiral really is you have a problem, and then rather than that problem getting better over time, it just gets worse and worse and worse. The problem gets bigger and badder, and then eventually culminates in some sort of event that's not a good thing. And I don't know exactly what that event will be, whether something goes wrong at the factory and they have to shut it down for days or weeks or months, employees go on strike, whether customers finally give up because they can't get a hold of the miniatures they want to play the game that they are new to or have been enjoying for years, or finally Games Workshop gives up and says that they're going to build factories in China or Mexico so that they can manufacture cheap products and meet the demand. And I'm sure there's 100 other solutions that I haven't thought of. But the fact of the matter is, it all comes down to the bottleneck. So if you're not familiar with the bottleneck, essentially what we have is everything leads to the next phase of our business. So if we design a ton of stuff, but we're only able to manufacture a limited amount of that stuff, that then limits how much we could sell. So think about it like a garden hose. We walk over and turn on the tap and the water starts to flow through the hose. And the same amount of water that flows into the hose flows out of the hose at the end. And that is how this is supposed to work. They design a bunch of stuff, they manufacture that stuff, plus keep up on their old catalog, and then they sell a bunch of that stuff, and then continue to design, manufacture, and sell, and that's their business model. They grow over time, and that's how it's supposed to function. But if you go over to the water and turn on the tap, and the water starts to flow through the garden hose, and then you stand on it in one place, now suddenly pressure will build up in the first half of the hose before you're standing on it, and then water will trickle out at a much slower pace through the end of the hose. And that is essentially the bottleneck. It's stopping the flow where we're standing on the hose. And for Games Workshop, their main bottleneck is manufacturing. So what we're seeing right now take place is Games Workshop is doing a phenomenal job designing stuff. They are completely failing to manufacture sufficient amount of product, not only to sell new things, but also to maintain their current catalog of supply. And that is leading to a point where, of course, they're not able to sell as much product as they would be able to sell. And we know that because right now there's tons and tons of people, hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of people who would go onto Games Workshop's website or go onto the internet and attempt to buy things that just aren't available for sale. So we know for sure that right now Games Workshop is failing to manufacture enough product to sell. Otherwise, we would see some things sold out, but we wouldn't see the catalog completely depleted like this. Now, obviously, part of this is because the Tyranids got the first codex. Obviously, part of this is because the Tyranids are in the launch box, but that doesn't make any excuse for it. And we know that a lot of the other factions have a bunch of stuff already sold out as well. And we presume that the Space Marines will get their codex next and then potentially have the exact same issues. As a matter of fact, quite a few of the Space Marine units, specifically like tanks and heavy armor, things that are strong in this edition, have been unavailable for months, even before the edition started. So we can only presume that if Games Workshop does not correct its issue, which is the manufacturing, that when the Space Marine book comes out next and the new Space Marine releases come out and everybody rushes into Space Marines, and of course they're not going to be able to suddenly manufacture more or suddenly keep up. So then the Space Marine catalog is going to look like this as well. And slowly but surely, they will continue to design things. They will continue to fail at manufacturing sufficient supply of them. And then they won't have enough to sell. They'll completely sell out. And then we'll just end up with another faction of depleted models. And with roughly like 25 factions in the game, knowing that we're already having issues with the first one, second one on the horizon, and that we've been having issues basically since the launch of this edition, not to mention now we're seeing delays in the new Horus Heresy Adeptus Titanicus game. We also have not heard much about the new season of Warcry or Kill Team, which should be starting anytime now. We can tell that Games Workshop is getting further and further behind. And they've been showing off their new designs left and right. They've been selling out of pretty much everything they put out. And we know what that means. It means that the bottleneck is the issue. They need to manufacture more. So what does that mean? Does Games Workshop have to go back to manufacturing in China? Do they need to open up a new manufacturing plant in the United States or possibly Mexico to service their North America industry? I honestly don't know. I've presented some ideas in the past. Games Workshop is a big company. They're worth billions of dollars. I'm sure they've got think tanks and people looking at this. I suspect that part of the issue is they haven't wanted to reinvest their profits because they want to pay the big fat dividend. or that they're afraid to reinvest in new factories and new machines because they think this is just a temporary surge in popularity for Warhammer 40,000 and then it will eventually fade and they'll be able to get caught back up. Or maybe they're in the process of building new factories all over the world and we just don't know about it yet. But the fact of the matter is they have a bottleneck and it's already leading to the early stages of a death spiral. And if they don't correct that issue with manufacturing, if they don't alleviate that bottleneck by either slowing down design, creating less products so they can focus more on the popular things, or increase their output for manufacturing, it's not going to get any better. And then eventually they won't have anything to sell. And then finally they'll be able to design all the stuff they want, manufacture at 100% capacity, and still won't have enough product to sell. We will see their sales, we will see their profits, we will see the popularity of the game in general or the company's products in general fall off a cliff as eventually people just can't get what they want, so they give up and go play something else or choose another hobby. And like I said, I don't know what the final repercussions will be if Games Workshop doesn't alleviate the bottleneck, but this is exactly what a death spiral is. So when you start to have issues, you don't correct those issues, and then they continue to compound and get worse and worse and worse, until eventually they culminate into some sort of negative event. And I don't know if that's going to be a massive drop in profits or profitability, a massive drop in popularity, or some sort of crash in what has amounted to a parabolic new level of interest and sales. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now back to the video. And I know there's a lot of people that will attack Games Workshop or a lot of people that will defend Games Workshop. Me personally, I love Games Workshop. I love their IP. I've been playing, painting, and collecting their stuff for over 30 years. And obviously I have a YouTube channel that's dedicated to all of their games and hobby stuff. But oftentimes when I'm voicing like praise or concern, it's because that's what I'm hearing from the community. And right now, especially from new players, there is a lot of frustration behind not being able to get the popular Tyranid, Space Marine, or whatever other kits that they want to get. It's not as much an issue with existing players because many of them already have friends or piles of shame, networks of people that they can trade, buy, and sell with, etc. But with new players trying to get into a new game and play or collect or build, paint, etc., just be a part of the hobby, it can be very, very frustrating to go onto the website to try to pick stuff up, to try to get the models that you need or you want or you like, and none of them are available. And honestly, as somebody that has a pile of shame that is truly shameful in size, I can tell you that it's still frustrating for someone like me not being able to pick up the specific kits that I want. So I don't know what Games Workshop is going to do to correct this issue, but I know what they have to do. They have to address the issues with manufacturing, and they have to do it soon. Because if they continue to just design all this cool new stuff, fail to manufacture adequate amounts of the new products, and restock their old catalog, eventually their sales will take a massive hit. And while their stock price has been doing phenomenally well over the last few years and is now reapproaching all-time highs, everyone knows that stock prices are essentially just a multiple, price to sales or price to earnings. So if Games Workshop doesn't correct the issue and they see the sales drop off a cliff, that's going to directly hurt earnings, and that is going to be reflected negatively in their stock price if they don't fix the issue with manufacturing. So what is the Games Workshop death spiral and how do they fix it? They're having serious bottlenecks with manufacturing and the issues are only compounding further. And if they don't do something about it, if they don't improve their efficiency or find a way to maximize the output of manufacturing, it's only going to get worse. And the Games Workshop death spiral is going to compound until eventually it culminates in a single event. So let me know what you think down below. Have you been experiencing some levels of these frustrations? Have you had a difficult time securing models? Or when you do, having to overpay for them because they're scarce? Are you one of the people that thinks this is all intentional and Games Workshop is purposely making their products scarce so that they sell out better? Do you have any inside information about new factories Games Workshop is picking up or places they're expecting to expand? Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. But I know from what I've heard already, especially from new players, this is a very frustrating issue. And as we can see from the US catalog, at this point in time, it would be basically impossible for a new player to start playing Tyranids. So Games Workshop needs to focus on not only putting out new models, but also correcting the stock issues that they're having on their entire existing line. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring this video. Check them out to save 15% on Games Workshop, link in the description. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man. Games Workshop is in the early stages of a death spiral, and we can watch their issues compounding in real time. And they better do something about it before it's too late. And I'm out of here.